For this life in the fucking cage, I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man, we fucking earned that shit, we earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind, you don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow, got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow, got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
You're never gonna make so many others try to do the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up, I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow, got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow, got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind, you don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow, got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow, got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
You're never gonna make so many others try to do the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up, I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow, got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you could get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
You're never gonna make so many others trying to do the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. You can't do it. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this. This type of life that I'm living, every move that I make, I can snap any minute, so I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you could get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this. This type of life that I'm living, every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
You're never gonna make so many others trying to do the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. You can't do it. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this. This type of life that I'm living, every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
never gonna make so many others trying to do the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. You can't do it possible. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this. This type of life that I'm living, every move that I make, I can snap any minute, so I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
You're never gonna make so many others trying to do the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. You can't do it possible. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this. This type of life that I'm living, every move that I make, I can snap any minute, so I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums for mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow.
You're never gonna make so many other friends. The same thing. You gotta be so lucky. You can't do it all. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums for mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow.
gotta be so lucky. I can't do it. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
You're never gonna make so many others trying the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. I can't do it. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. Yeah, I'm going the flow.
You're never gonna make so many others try to do the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. You can't do it possible. You're not good. It's all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
You're never gonna make
Crawling inside of the depth, I telling you I cannot die. Laying around, but I gotta fight. Knocked you out, so good night. Hit me now, but I won't whine. Just try, no lies, no cry. Insight, you'll mine. Fighting my demons, I'll put them inside of the place. I never taught of them, honestly, they are not great. They are not great, telling me lies that they wanna say. Everything I wanna do, but it's not okay. Taking a hole and they calling my grave. Putting me down, but there's no way. Look in the mirror, I think about me and my life. Will I have a car? Will I have a house or a good wife? Make a decision, I don't really know which one is right. One is right. Now that you see I'm crazy inside my mind. I just wanna pick a side. Where can I go? Where can I go? I know that I got a mission. Seeing the show, this is only my addiction. Where can I go? Where can I go? I know that I got a mission. Seeing the show, this is only my addiction. receiving no reasons, I call it treason. Saying I'm a dead, but you're never gonna know me. I don't really wanna hurry up, it's not a killing. You don't even give me, never got a feeling. Praying that you did, but you never feel it. Calling me out like you know I got a demon. Running about it and say I am dreaming. Never gonna happen when I am bleeding. Hate it, but love it, but I can see it. Now that I'm telling you, don't really get it. You're acting like I am the menace. I'm talking to you, but it's only 1 second. You wanted to tell me and put me inside of the record. While waiting, I'm counting the numbers and counting the seconds. So I see my fun as I'm reading a message. You wanted to tell me, I know that I read it, but I'm not the bitch you wanted to mess with. Why do you tell me this? I don't care what you wanna say. Now that I think you're bad, I put you inside of your grave. Can you sit down in your class? I don't care what you make. Why are you always sad? What do you wanna break? Where can I go? Where can I go? I know that I got a mission. Seeing the show, this is my only addiction. Where can I go? Where can I go? I know that I got a mission. Seeing the show, this is my only addiction.
You're never gonna make so many others try to do the same thing. You gotta be so lucky. Can't do it all. You're not good at all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
Good all luck.
Man, shut the fuck up. I'm doing me, and that's all. Got this beat on repeat in my brain and my heart. You don't know this type of life that I'm living. Every move that I make, I can snap any minute. So I forget about time and escape reality. All I need are these drums and mic and melody. Yeah, that's my only way to feel alive, and I'ma live it up. This shit is do or die. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow. When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, this shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
Kinda funny how it happened, cause it really cut me out. Didn't know what I should do, but now I'm really back and they kinda shut me down. Well, just go for my heart, that's what I knew, I did from the start. Now I just come up with bars and I make it all rain when I carry the car. Cause I'm the one, I'm rising to the top, I gotta do it now, I'm the one that's about to knock. I'm coming up to heaven and I'm kicking in the door. I be like, God, yo, what's up? I need a chance, need a spot, so I really can't take it. I just gotta do it, I can really underrate it. Now I gotta get it, man, I gotta go and make it. So I put myself up on the board, I put myself up on the radar. Fuck a hater, I do it now, I'm the one that's gonna make it. On the journey, the vibe is amazing. So this is the way that I'm chasing. Yeah, I am not thinking complacent, cause I'm the one that's gonna make it. So I come right down, when I put in my work, I'm gonna get this stuff all y'all been saying. Not built for this, but I'll be made for this. I gotta do it now, I'm just amazing kid. Cause I resisted though, and this temptation's kids. You wanna go and take it, I'm like, wait, shit. Y'all just wanna talk, or y'all just wanna hate. Or look up at my actions, I just go insane. So I've been really reckless, moving in this lane. Yes, I gotta get this, working every day. Cause I've been elevating. Yes, I gotta do it, everybody used to say that this shit is stupid. Now I'm just making this shift in this game. Now I'm just making this shit with this music. As I jump it, it's going so hard. Look at my numbers, they're just going up. I'm on the rise, I come to the top. They wanna talk, but I am like, what? Yeah, hey, come on. Hey, hey, I can see the pain within your eyes. And I just wish that you would wake up and just open up your mind, yeah. Open up your eyes, open up your life. Cause you just gotta be alive. Cause we're living in the darkness and you hate it every time. So you just gotta change, man, open up your mind to the beautiful things around. Man, it's called life, take a breath. It's fresh, it's nice and it's cold. It's so refreshing, especially cause you hate it all. But if you change your mind and you get involved in the beautiful things, then you can be all that you... Shut your mouth and just listen to me. If you follow this, then you could be, yeah, everything that you wanna be. Stop the negative things, cause you need to see what the positive in life, and you can really change it. I know you gotta cross, say you can really make it. Man, this life is complicated, I see it, I feel your pain. But if you open up to change it, then you could be okay with no depression and all the pressure around. You could be living chill, you can start up from the ground. You can take one step, hey, you could really lounge in the sky, cause you could just change, yeah, do it now, yeah, today. Oh yeah, today, and not tomorrow, cause that's what they always say. Oh, you can pray, that's not the way. Cause you just gotta take action and just go insane, yeah.
Quiere tumbarme, pero ellos saben que yo soy la para. No hablan de frente, pero Lambón deja las cosas claras. No son de calle, todos palomos solo se enmascaran. Pero se entiende porque todos te salen doble cara. Negro no la venga a contar, no me importa la catita. Ninguno tiene calidad, nada de nada. Sin respeto no vale nada. Mi mente puesta pa' sumar, con esto me voy a quedar. Haciéndolo easy flow Jacob, puesto con la Nike corté. Subo tan rápido tú no lo ves, llegando con millas finales de mes. Antes eran 2 shorty, ahora duermo con 3. Tirando a la cancha como el 23. Frontean con tenis, solo tienen 3. El sueldo de tu padre lo multipliqué. Dímelo Nike.
¿Y yo qué culpa tengo si me han tirado a la piscina con el móvil en el bolsillo, papá? Buen argumento, ¿eh? Vamos con esto.
Tranquilo, que tu padre lo tiene fácil. Porque ahora, por ser de mi Movistar, puedes tener hasta 5 dispositivos. Estrenar uno está bien, estrenar más es mejor.
Ah, y carita de pena, eso no falla.
En Imagine tenemos una pregunta. ¿De qué color ves nuestro logo? ¿Verde o azul? Si lo ves verde es porque juntos ya hemos plantado más de 300.000 árboles. Si lo ves azul es porque hemos retirado más de 21 toneladas de plástico del mar. Y es que somos muy azules, y muy verdes, y muy azules, y también verdes, y azules, claro. Imagine, somos lo que hacemos.
Las pequeñas alegrías no son pequeñas, son la alegría. Date una alegría. Ven, Andalucía.
Hello and welcome to Spain's capital for the third year of Madrid Urban Sports. I'm Mark Churchill and we are here to see over 300 competitors from 60 different countries compete in 4 different disciplines of skateboard, BMX, scooter and breakdance. Our first event of the day is going to be our BMX Women's Park Final, and that leads me to introduce our second member of the team, joining me live from New York City, the voice of BMX and the face of an angel. It's the lovely Daryl Now.
Well, Mark, you're way too kind. You can see that big smile that you put on my face, not only because I'm going to be joined with you, all of the riders, but also all the fans of BMX Freestyle around the world who are going to be cheering on the best BMX women who are going to be competing not only for the biggest chunk of Euros that are on the line, but also there's going to be points up towards the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. So this is a very big event. It's a qualifier. The points contribute towards that, and it's going to be a really exciting contest.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really exciting to hear and see this, and to be joined by you as well, mate. It's a pleasure. And we worked together earlier in the year as well, and we were lucky enough to see the Andalusia Urban born. And let's check out some of those highlights from the first event of the Urban World Series down in the south of Spain. Great event, that one, and it was the first time that Andalusia saw an Urban World Series competition, and it was so good, wasn't it, Daryl?
Yeah, just the level of riding and the fact that we have our Urban World Series creating all these different contests that are this international platform for riders and the support system. It's really exciting to see, and that we keep just building momentum at each one of our stops.
Yeah, and speaking of building momentum, we had our women's open qualifier earlier for BMX on the park, and the standard was really, really high, but a large amount of Chinese new names in there, Daryl.
Yeah, if you take a look, we actually have 7 out of the 8 finalists who are all representing China. And it's really interesting to see because a few years back, China really invested big into their BMX program. They brought over USA Pro Rob Darden to be the coach, and they built a lot of different facilities for the riders to train in. We'll talk all about that during the competition, but that's kind of the broad brushstroke of what BMX Freestyle, the evolution we're seeing, where we have these different federations who are getting behind the riders and creating those opportunities.
Yeah, and here we have our start list for today. Honglin Jia from China, 17 years of age. To stay composed at that age, I definitely wouldn't have been able to sit there and just be all chilled. I'd have been so nervous. And that's something that needs to be said. This is a big competition with big points on the line. So, Chen Zhang, age 19 from China, and keeping it with the Chinese contingent. Moving along to Zihui Fan, 18 years of age. All kisses in the crowd there. And Queensaray Villegas, age 20.
The one rider who is not Chinese but representing Colombia, so she's going to try to disrupt the podium from the Chinese and see if she could shake things up at this international competition.
Yeah, and if anyone can, it is definitely Queensaray. So CB Sun, 18 years of age from China. And keeping it with China, we're moving along to Yawen Deng, 17 years of age. And Jackie Sun, who's 19 years of age. And there's something to be said, I think, Daryl, about the age ranges that we've got here. there's not much difference, and it's a younger field, and it gets younger and younger constantly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the progression of the sport, but specifically what we're seeing out of China, where they really invested big in their program, and the riders really focus, and they have definitely more of a Olympic kind of training background, where it's a lot more structured, as opposed to maybe riders of my generation who come before, and it was a little bit more freestyle in terms of just when you go out and ride or how you want to kind of take to the course. We also didn't have skate parks like this. So the fact that you're able to grow up with all of these parks on a global level and then be able to push riding is really an interesting thing. And that's why we're seeing the big leap in progression as well, Mark.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned the park. We've got this huge park here with two big bookends, like you say. Lots of options in there, even though it is quite a linear park.
Yeah, I mean, we have on either end 4.5 meters high, some of those features, which are interesting. And then on either end, we do have hips, wall rides, transfers, and channel gaps that are going to give riders a lot of opportunity to turn around on. We also have 2 big box jumps that are going in opposing directions. And we also have assorted spine ramps that are in the middle as well. And those have all different length decks. What the deck is the top of the ramp from the takeoff to the landing, and a rider is going to have to adjust their speed or transfer from one ramp to the other, maybe going on an angle. And if they can utilize those lines, instead of only going just back and forth, but kind of working their way left to right or gapping, they'll definitely be rewarded as far as points go.
Yeah, those judges are very critical on the use of course, and they're also critical if you do fall off during that use of course. But with a course like this, you know, especially with that slightly hipped section in the middle kind of volcano area, you can really change your line and traverse across the course quite well.
Yeah, you can. And one more interesting thing that I want to note, this course potentially might favor a rider that turns to the left. And I only say that because after the box jump, you can see on the far side of your screen, there's that quarter pipe, and a rider can turn either direction on it, but it kind of will set you up a little bit. You almost have to ollie-oop and drift backwards, but if you turn to the left, you can keep your momentum flowing around the park. The same thing goes for the section that we're looking at on the screen right now. A rider can transfer and turn towards that box jump. Now, that's not always the case, because we see a lot of riders jumping box jumps backwards, where the level of difficulty increases because your landing, which was on the takeoff then, is steeper, so your margin of error and how precise you have to be increases. So it's not a set rule. There's nothing of the nature. It is freestyle, so a rider can take to the course any way they want. This is their 60 seconds where they have the opportunity to use the course as a canvas, their bike is the brush, and then any of the tricks that they do will help paint the full picture for our 3 judges, who are going to give a score from 0 to 100, 100 obviously being the best. And the fact that it is going to be a best run count score out of 2 is really going to be something that we're looking for out here.
Yeah, so 2 60-second runs, best run counts. And we have a couple of different styles of approach to those 2 runs. You've got one chance to fall off, whether that be that you take a safety run on the first run and just get the tricks and the score on the board, or whether you go full ham on the first one and then knowing you've got a backup. It kind of brings out the best in some people and the worst in others, but it definitely makes for a very, very exciting competition.
Yeah, Mark, that's a really good point. And, you know, I think a lot of that is how do riders really deliver under the pressure? You know, 60 seconds might not seem like a long time, but if you're in the arena and you're riding, that is a very long time. You can easily get winded, especially if you have nerves. And that's why we generally see older riders that are veterans. They maybe have the experience. They can manage that adrenaline boost that they have. They can regulate their breathing more so they don't get winded. But as you mentioned, most of our riders are in their late teens, so they don't have that experience. These are some of their first finals. They're trying to make a name for themselves on this international platform. So it's going to be interesting to see how nerves play into place. And again, because this is a UCI event, there's points up for grabs for the Paris 2024 games. A rider is going to have to really have a lot of control out there. They will be penalized more if they slip a pedal, if they wind up landing, not clearing a jump, if they wind up crashing. So those are all things that we're going to be looking for, and we'll commentate while the event is taking place. But essentially, a rider wants to clear across one of these jumps, land very smooth at the top so they can keep their momentum rolling throughout the 60 seconds. That will conserve energy. And if they can throw some tricks, some style, some height, some speed, originality in the mix, that's how they'll wind up getting rewarded with more points, and that their creativity will come into play. So there's always that factor that you got to basically risk versus reward. It's almost, think of it as a slider where you can kind of up the ante of risk where you do get the reward, but if you wind up having a mess up specifically at this UCI event, then your points are going to go down. So it's a unique strategy, putting all those things into place, and there's a lot of pressure that the riders can feel at a moment like this, Mark.
Yeah, knowing those points, and those very important points are on the line, is something that can make or break a run sometimes. And what we do see from, being at a lot of these events is there's usually a little bit of first run nerves. We've already seen our open qualifiers, but there's been no semi-final on this one, and we've just gone straight from open qualifiers through to finals. So we've got quite a big crowd that's joined us down here in the centre of Madrid as well. And, first run nerves is a thing, And once you see someone just gets that first run under the belt, then they change it up and say, you know what, okay, my nerves are gone now. Now I'm going full send. And that's what I like to see is, someone keeping something back. And the judges like to see that as well. They want to see something that the person's not done before, or maybe not done during the competition before, and then throw it into their run to change it up, because repetition is a thing. We just don't want to see the same runs over and over again, and the judges are pretty harsh on that factor itself.
Yeah, and Mark, one other thing that we kind of want to comment on is kind of add another dimension of the nerves for a rider, is the weather that's going on and taking place. We're actually slated to start about 30 minutes earlier, and as you know, just before we started, it was a beautiful sunny day, and I use the term beautiful nicely because it is extremely hot. We're at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which I believe is 37 degrees Celsius, so that is very hot. It's humid, and right before we were about to start, all of a sudden these rain clouds just rolled in and just started downpouring and delayed our competition. But to get an idea of the heat that's there, if you look around on the ground, there's actually no water left, so it immediately evaporated.
Yeah, they got the squeegees out, but I think before they actually got the squeegee to the water, it had evaporated. We're dealing with some pretty extreme temperatures, and that's one thing that's going to be on people's minds. You get your mind in the headset, you're like, right, okay, here we go, finals. Let's get up on the platform, get a few practice runs in, then it rains. And then you're like, no, I just got in the space in my head where I'm like focused and ready to ride. And then it rains and you're like, okay, setback. But, we're dealing with some new names, but everybody looks pretty composed up there. And, that comes down to that training.
Yeah, and there's multiple factors with that, too. As we mentioned, before the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, Rob Darden, who's a USA rider, he's actually now working with Team USA and Ryan Nyquist, but he went over and spent a few years in China helping develop their initial program. And then now for all of our Eagle Eye BMX fans, you might have seen Daniel Dares, who was actually just on the side of the course. He's known as one of the most celebrated BMX athletes. He's won every competition, including a medal at the Olympic Games. And he now is consulting and working with the Chinese to help develop their program even further.
Okay, rider number one, Honglin, getting ready to hit that roll in and drop in straight in to that big box jump. Wow! Kicking it off.
Whoa, that was a great combination there. I believe that was a nothing, taking all of her limbs off and then throwing a bar spin. That's a big two-hit combination. That's something that you traditionally would see maybe in the mid-90s at a dirt jumping contest. I like the style right there, so it's a little bit more of a classic BMX style. And then she also had that tail whip over the box jump, which was really smooth. And right now we're seeing the way that she's working her way across the course. From either side of your screen, you see she's coming close and trying to hit as many of these ramps as possible within the amount of time. And there's some of the transfers that I was talking about where she went off that spine ramp into the box jump landing.
Yeah, really making use of every inch of the course here. Cruising over that midsection. Just coming down to the final 5 seconds of run number 1 of 2. There's the bar spin up onto the knuckle of that second box. And a tail whip to finish it off. Solid run there, and pretty much landed everything in that one, but we're going to need it tidied up a little bit more to get access to those higher score points.
Yeah, so the judges right now, they are going to have to determine what that score is going to be. This is going to kind of set the bar and set the tone. But taking a look right there, the bar spin after putting all of her limbs on, there was a look at that tail whip across that step-up channel. Looking for the no-hander right there, trying to tuck the bars into her lap and take them off. Not getting that full extension, but that was a good first run.
61.33 coming in there for score number 1. That's what we mean about getting that first score on the board, and then you know where you're sat. So, Quian Jin up next. I think I'm going to be saying these names different every time, Daryl. Some of the new names are quite difficult to pronounce.
Well, I
think
think
a good
that's,
shot.
Whoa, huge backflip variation over the box, and look at the height on that tuck no-hander. I think that's one of the exciting things right now, Mark, the fact that there are new names for us to be mentioning here at a competition. That's one of the best parts about the Urban World Series, and specifically being here in Madrid. We're giving riders on an international level a platform to help build the experience, build a name for themselves. And having that, it's something that's really exciting. We used to not see as much. It used to be a lot of the same names, specifically in our women riders. And now you're seeing the progress with that big tail whip transfer as we got our camera with that really cool perspective flying around the course. And you can just see Sheng with the 360 over that extended spine and working it out, trying to put something together for the last 10 seconds. These are important because it lets the judges know that you have full control, like she did right there on that 540. That was a huge move to do within your run. You're doing basically a 360 plus a 180, and I put it down in that way because you have that blind spot when you turn around at that final rotation looking over your shoulder. You got to make sure you don't hang up your front wheel, and that was very nicely done. The start of the run, big red carpet entrance with that backflip turn down, getting the bike completely tweaked to the side. There's a very nice tail whip, clean to pedals right there. And then you had, again, that 540, which was a big exclamation point at the end of the run.
Oh, and a huge score coming in there for run number 1. For Zheng, we've got 74 straight points. And your new leader going to be very happy with that. And I mean, you mentioned it just now, we are seeing the progression of women's BMX right here in front of us in real time. And it is super exciting to be here with you, Daryl. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. As a fan of the sport, seeing the progress has been so cool. For the last several decades, the men have definitely been pushing the sport, and not to take away from the women at all. I actually want to highlight that. Yes, big 360 tail whip all the way across the box. You saw landing very smooth, Ziha Fan right into that landing and then keeping the momentum. But the progress that we have going on with the progression is so exciting. It almost reminds me in some ways of some of my favorite era of BMX in the late 90s, early 2000s, where it was just so punk rock and pushing forward, and at every contest, someone was just sending it, and you saw something new happening, and you got that similar energy going on. I just love that aspect of BMX.
Yeah, I totally agree exactly with what you're saying there. And seeing a mixture of some of those older tricks with all of the newer tricks is really good to see. It shows, the original founding fathers of BMX are still in remembrance. So 5 seconds
shout
left
out
on
because
the
a lot
clock.
of the founding members are still riding. I'm actually going to go meet up with Ron Wilkerson, one of the original freestyle pioneers, and we're going to be riding in a few weeks. So I love just seeing that the forefathers of our sport are still out there pushing themselves and getting things done. But right there, we got that 360 done it nicely. Here's two different perspectives, as you see, utilizing the upper body to get that back end, to just get the momentum around, very clean over the top of that step-up landing. There's a little bit of a carved-out channel, so if a rider doesn't make the gap, it's still rounded on top. It's not going to necessarily totally slow them down or buck them off, but it's enough to kind of disrupt. And we did not see that at all from Zihuan Fan's first run on the course.
I am certainly a fan of Fan. Indeed. Okay, run number 1 of 2. Next rider's in. Big 360 to start things off. This is Queensaray Villegas. Oh, beautiful way to start the run. This is looking great so far, Daryl.
Yeah, the Colombian looking to just disrupt the Chinese dominance in this final. She is the only rider out of 8 that is not representing China. And right now, the Red Bull rider is flying high across the course. Look at the flow as she just takes her foot off on that knack, and then that huge air over the hip. From that perspective, it looks like that she aired up way over that wall ride, which was so cool to see, and then landing smooth, keeping her momentum going. Now, this is going to be a turning point. If she can keep that speed for the remainder 18 seconds of the run, this is going to be a very big score. But the judges want to see, because if you sometimes get a little bit lost out there and you don't know exactly where you're going, it can show by that momentum shift.
Yeah, for sure. And ticking the execution box for me, Queensaray absolutely smashes it. Does everything pretty much perfect.
Yeah, such a talented rider. She's actually a twin, believe it or not. And her sister Liz is another talented rider as well. We've seen both of them in finals before, and it's very exciting. I know that their coach, Alejandro Caro, who's another lifetime rider, longtime friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a while, but Alejandro, great job with your rider representing Colombia out there. You're giving all the support, and I see some of this classic style, like they're just getting the bike laid out to the side. If she turned her bars to the top, that would have been a tabletop, but since they were turned down and that little bit of an angle, that was called a Euro table, so kind of switching things up a little bit and just showing you the diversity.
So eagerly waiting for that first run score to come in. 74 is the score to beat so far. Definitely given the judges a run for their money there. They're all sat pretty much over to the left of me where I am right now.
Yeah, our 3 judges, we have Jesus Fuentes, Nuno Milanos, and then Axel Jurgens, who are basically trying to make sense of all the riding that we're seeing, not only giving the rider a numeric value, but they're going to have to see how does that rider fit with the other competitors in the competition.
So 59 coming in there for Queensaray. And we are moving on to the next rider. CB Sun is gearing up for getting down. Starting off up on that huge roll in.
A little surprised that Queensaray didn't get a higher score, but you know, in hindsight, now that I think about it, she didn't necessarily have one of those big box jump tricks, and she did have a lot of flow, and then a little tapered off with speed towards the end of the run. So not being critical, but maybe that's what the judges are thinking in their eye. And she's going to have this opportunity that we talked about as far as strategy goes in her second run. Does she change her game plan? Does she try to throw more toppings at the end of the run? Or is she going to try to put some big banger tricks in?
Yeah, Hongling getting stuck in. Run number 2 of 2. 35 seconds on the clock, cruising over that huge volcano, about 6 foot high, that thing. It is very intimidating.
Yeah, these ramps are huge. As we mentioned, nice tail whip, getting the height all the way into that bankment. So having some difficulty right there, 19 seconds left, putting the hands up. And Hong Lin, I believe her first score of the 61.33 will be her better of the 2. And that is what is going to wind up sticking. But we're going to see a couple highlights and break down that nothing to bar spin again. Didn't get as much extension, taking the feet off in the arms. But again, such a cool trick to put together. There's that tail whip. You saw the back wheel hung up just a little bit on the deck. And there's another tail whip, but that one is a transfer from the quarter pipe into the wedge. Sometimes when you air on a quarter pipe and land into a quarter pipe or the wedge transfer, it's a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about it being precise on your landing. It's a little bit of a mellower embankment to land on, so you don't have to really eye up that coping and come in with that super clean landing. But it's still a really cool trick, and if you throw extra height in as she did, there you got it, a good recipe for a nice tail whip.
Yeah, for sure. So next rider up, we've got Qian Zheng from China, run number 2 of 2.
Yeah, way to start things off. Look at the height on that no-hander to turn down. Very cool trick to put together because the no-hander, you're tucking the bars into your lap so the front of the bike stabilizes. You saw that again over that box jump. But then to get that turn down, you have to twist your body out of the way and actually adjust your cranks so that you can just get your feet and clear the seat. So cool combination. There we're seeing a transfer into the box jump takeoff backwards. As we mentioned, it's a lot steeper going in that direction and very good use of the core. So you can see just almost doing like a, if you looked at a bird's eye view, a figure 8 on those transfers back and forth. And the judges do take all of that into consideration. They do like to look at the lines. And, you know, that's something that Daniel Dares has always been really great at in his contest. It's kind of been part of his secret sauce of his strategy, and a nice 540. And I wonder how much of that influence and kind of giving those strategy tips and pointers to our Chinese riders, if that is really goes into the strategy. Maybe that was her plan ahead of time, but either way, 2 for 2 on the 540, really smooth on the reentry. Let's take a look here at that backflip, getting the turn down. There you see the similar on that no-hander to turn down. You had to get the body out of the way, twist the handlebars, clean 360 into that steep landing, and a very nice 540.
Yeah, seemed to be a definite sense of urgency on that one. And 75.67, and in that first place position, that is the new score to beat. So we're way up there, mid-70s already, Daryl.
Wow, 2 solid scores for Qian Zhang, 74 and a 75.67, letting her presence be known.
Yeah, and you were mentioning Mr. Diaz earlier. Every time he drops in here, the crowd goes wild. They love him over in Spain. And if you've got someone training you of that standard and of that legacy, you are going to take that on. And I think we are seeing a little bit of his riding coming out in every single Chinese rider today.
Yeah, I mean, the focus out here is phenomenal. 360 tail whip again, right over to that landing. Fan just, having some trouble right there. Slipping both pedals off the back of the bike. So when there is a crash, thankfully getting back up on her own, a rider can continue on during that time. There's no timeouts, but they will just be penalized for that time. And I know it's a best run format that counts, but regardless, sometimes that score might be really important. If you fall in your first run and you get back on it, we do see some riders who just kind of wave it off and say, hey, my first or second run, I'm going to put the emphasis and energy on that. So again, a lot of that's kind of a strategy, but let's take a look at what went right here. That 360 tail whip, spotting the landing, coming right in, and then just having some difficulty landing a little heavy and the feet slipping off the pedals. But thankfully, it doesn't look to be too hurt. A lot of nerves, a little bit shaken up, and it's going to be not the second run that counts.
Yeah, 16 points coming in there. So, yeah, that shows the importance of getting that first run down clean as well, because it can all fall apart on the second one, or it can even get better. And I think we're going to see something special now from Villegas. Needs to step it up quite heavy from run number 1. And coming out off of that roll-in, starting things off, looking very, very composed and clean.
Yeah, that cadence of the bar spin to X up, and then the height of that tabletop. I know Tabe Lords, the BMX tabletop Instagram account that highlights some of the best flatties in the game, will be pumped on that table, just leaning that bike over, airing all the way out of that 4.5 meter high wall ride. So right now, pumping on through, doing it for Pirate BMX, Viking BMX Titanium, and Materials of Innovation Dentistry. Villegas right now just flowing through. And again, let's see if she could maybe get some of these landings and really start pumping and turning up the speed in this end part of her run. Bar spin onto the deck, air over the hip, and now what's it going to be? Disaster. It's when you stall on top of the ramp like that with one wheel on either side of that coping, and that is going to wind up wrapping it up for the Colombian rider, who I already said her coach Alejandro Caro is cheering her on, trying to disrupt the potential Chinese podium. She's the only rider who is not representing China in the final. Take a look, 360 tabletop, laying it over right there, looking for that landing. able to get over the top. There was that bar spin to X up. The bar spin is when you throw the bars all the way around. The X up's when you twist them halfway to that 180 point, X your arms up, and then bring it on back and spot that landing.
So 50.33 coming through, sticking with that first run score. So that is heat number 1. We've got heat number 2 warming up right now. This is all of the riders who are lucky enough to qualify in the higher scores have had the luxury of watching everyone else ride, and now they know what the judges are scoring well and what they're not, and what they need to do to take our top scores off of the board. And that really shows as well in some of the riders with the other side of competition, knowing what it takes to get through, Daryl, and knowing how to change up your run. If you've trained something else and then you see the judges aren't scoring similar runs as well, it's being able to, at a moment's notice, change that run up, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Or one step further, if somebody maybe that didn't qualify as high in competition the day before and they say, hey, I was saving it for the finals, and they throw down a big hammer like we saw those 540s, you go, uh-oh, my 360 isn't going to cut it. Maybe I'll play with that risk versus reward factor and try to do something equal or greater than that so that you can compete and try to beat that out. Because if you're sitting there and you're going to be in the second heat, sometimes the first heat, someone says, hey, I'm going to put my gloves on and swing for a haymaker in the first heat, and they don't pull it. Well, then in your second heat, if you're one of the riders who have yet to go, you don't have to dig that deep in your bag of tricks. So it's not a guarantee, but in some ways, there can be a little bit of strategy, and it can almost work in your favor. Again, just like jumping the box jump and turning to one direction, it's not a set-in-stone rule, but it really comes down to a lot of riders and their strategy and the way that they can just work the field in real time and kind of adapt to the conditions that are out there.
Yeah, with only a small amount of warm-up, you've got to really put some effort in if you do want to change that run-up. And so far, something else to mention is pretty much everybody has started in the same position, up in that roll-in position that faces our first box jump.
Yeah, Mark, that's a really good point that you illustrate. A rider can start from any vantage point that they want. They could start on flat ground if that was their choosing. But we're seeing a lot of riders go down this big roll-in. It gives them a very clear, consistent speed for that box jump where they're able to put together that first trick and get that done. If another rider starts at another point, the judges do know that there's a lot more difficulty out there. As we said, these are very seasoned vets. The riders that are judges, their lifetime, they still ride and rip. Axel Jurgens actually builds his own parks with Eurocamp build, so he has a lot of experience on what it's like on a course and what kind of lines that a rider chooses in order to link the lines together and be able to pull the combos.
Yeah, and speaking of those lines and linking those lines together, CB Sun, run number 1 from heat number 2, looking pretty good out there so far.
Yeah, there you go, tossing those bars. I believe that was double time over that transfer, checking in with the front tire on that tire grab. There is an alley-oop X-up. That's what I talk about, where it's alley-oop. You see she had to float backwards, but was able to then set up cleanly and come right in. And that's where I meant as far as if a rider has a preference of they turn one way or the other, they put a little bit more time in. We see a lot of riders in 2023, they actually air both ways, not a problem at all. It's almost as if they don't have a regular or switch for all of our skateboarders out there, you know, ollieing in a different direction or on a different stance on the board. And that could be the same thing with riding. It could be very difficult, but we're seeing a lot of bike control from CB Sun.
Yeah, solid first run. Here's some of those highlights. Yeah, double trouble on the 360 to kick it off. And that's that alley-oop you were speaking of. So pretty technical run to kick things off there. And we're waiting for that first run score to come in.
And while we do, I just want to make note that the UCI has a full list of standings and points towards the Olympics, and they also have for rider standings and country standings, and CB Soon is actually sitting in 16th overall for our women's category. So hopefully her being in the finals and can place up high, that will kind of adjust her rankings a little bit. And I'm sure everyone's wondering, where is China sitting? Because we're seeing this domination. They're actually in 4th place for overall for nations. It's USA, Germany, Great Britain, and China in 4th. But I wouldn't be surprised if that starts to change and China works their way up the ladder, because just last weekend at the French Cup, there was another podium sweep from China, and we had 3 riders who were actually in the finals here who took the top 3 places. So the points are starting to rack up, and we're seeing that this Chinese just dominance is starting to really take hold.
Yeah, and CB Sun, run number 1, sees her jump straight into that 3rd place position. So that's a very comfortable position to be in, and we're moving on to run number 1, 60 seconds on the clock for Yawen Deng from China.
Speaking of the French Cup, Yawang Deng actually got 1st place in that competition, so she has what it takes to be on top of the podium and beat out her Chinese teammates. So let's see right now, 42 seconds in. I loved that combination right there. It looked like that was a double bar spin to potentially X up. A little hard to see from our perspective, but that's a lot of confidence to be able to toss the bars that quickly and still focus on the landing. She had that big entrance with the flip variation, and right now, if she could keep it the momentum going for the final 20 seconds, Mark, this is a really good run so far.
Yeah, solid riding from Yawen. You see why she's qualified so high through to today's finals. Beautiful bar spin over that midsection, cruising over the hip to change direction, coming back over the box.
Before that hit on the hip. Sorry, Mark. Before that hit on the hip, she actually didn't have any dead walls. What I mean by that is she just kept putting trick in, which is a really hard thing to do because you have to have that just control and confidence. So let's take a look right here. Big entrance, stretching out the no-handed backflip right there over that step up. There's the bar spin, and looking for the X up. It wasn't a full twist on the bars for a full X, but still shows a lot of control. And in some ways, very difficult to do the double bar spin and then just throw that X, because you got to know the first bar spin that you're going to be committed and have those hands to guide the bars around.
Yeah, great riding there from Yawen. And jumping straight into 2nd place with 74 points. 75.67 is still the score to beat from run number 1. So, after such a phenomenal run then, that score from run number 1 from Zheng is the score still to beat. That shows you just how good that run was. So, run number 1 for Jackie Sun. All slipping the pedals just on the land in that one, but continuing with the run.
Trying to go big. You see right there the momentum and maybe a little bit of that energy was zapped. That can definitely happen because like we said, there's a lot of nerves, but now building speed back up. You saw that air and then the clean tail whip transfer, spotting the land and getting that front end down. Here we go, 34 seconds, one-footed X up. That's where you twist the bars like we saw before, and then taking it off. Nice height on that tabletop air out of that quarter pipe.
Yeah,
really
that was
great
huge.
To see.
It's so hard to come back from a fall in your first couple of tricks, but this is showing full experience and coming back hitting hard.
Yeah, I feel like we're actually also seeing a lot of more classic style from the Chinese riders. I don't know if maybe if Daniel Dares lent them some old school BMX prop sets where they were able to just see, because that one-footed X up, that was again more of like a 1990s, early 2000s jumping trick, and I love it. The tabletops. And we saw the nothing with bar spin earlier. So it's really cool just to see not every rider coming out only trying to do a tail whip or a bar spin or a flare. So having that kind of combination there. But here's a look at a tail whip, getting around, finding the landing. And again, there were a lot of different tricks put in the run. There's that one-footed X I was talking about. I like the style, just putting the foot back just kind of getting that bike a little bit off to the side right there and twisting it. So showing the bike control, and we mentioned style is definitely a key factor for a rider's score.
So 47 coming in for run number 1. So slipping the pedals on one of those tricks has definitely affected that score. And the judges are very critical if you don't make a completely clean run. And last rider before we take it back to the top of the heat for runs 2. We've got Humin Zhao, 18 years of age. And you mentioned earlier, seeing some of those old school tricks coming in, you've got to have some deep roots to grow a beautiful tree though, mate. And it looks like Team China are growing some of the greatest trees out there at the moment.
Well, Mark, you are quite a wordsmith, and right now we're going to see if Humin Zhao can put that together on the course. I love this perspective. You really get an idea of the transfers and the lines that the riders are taking. And take a look right now, bar spin across and then jumping to the right. So we're seeing that, just that transfer, turning to the right, able to air both directions. So I feel like that might be a little bit of a key factor and potentially could have contributed to her being the #1 qualifier and it being on top of every other rider and having this vantage point of going last in the contest.
Yeah, definitely. You get that insight of seeing what's scoring well and what's not, and being able to adjust accordingly to get the maximum points you can. Coming down to those last 3 seconds, cruising over the middle section. And that is going to be time for Huimin.
Going to take this opportunity and give a little shout out to the Bloom BMX. It's actually a BMX media site focused on women's BMX freestyle. There's a really cool interview that you can read with Humin Zhao, and you can wind up hearing a little bit about her riding, her inspirations, and the Bloom BMX going under the hood to see what kind of makes the Chinese rider tick. And one thing that she mentioned I thought that stands out is that she puts in over 28 hours a week riding, which is really impressive. And the fact that there is kind of a structured riding plan, and that's what I was mentioning a little bit earlier in our pre-show, BMX freestyle or even skating used to be a little bit more, you just go out, you ride when you want to. I'm not saying one way is better than the other, but now with the Olympics and different federations, we're seeing a lot of riders taking more kind of consistent training principles, trying to push things up. There's a lot more on the line, a lot more stakes. Having the facilities, the coaches, and the fact that there are 28 hours put into it, really impressive to see that dedication. But big shout out to the Bloom BMX. Go check them out. Give them a support. Follow them on Instagram. Stay up to date with all that's happening with women's BMX freestyle.
So run number 2 of 2. CB Sun back in with 45 seconds left on the clock. Cruising over that hip and beasting over that second box jump with a no-hander.
Ooh, getting the bars right there, throwing the variation on the transfer. So again, we talk about the momentum. If you land a little bit low, you're going to have to take some pedals on the flat bottom. If you can pump and flow without that, it shows a little bit more of commanding control on the course. Those are all the details when the judges have to say, hey, what rider stands out? What one impressed me a little bit more than the other? And those are all the things that they're looking for to try to come up with that score.
Yeah, for sure, and it's looking good for run number 2 from CB Sun. 1 second left on the clock. Alley-oop X up. And that is it. 2 runs in, and saying thank you very much to the amazing Madrid crowd here, who have been waiting for 5 days whilst they've been building the course down here. And everybody's always stoked for Madrid Urban Sports.
That backflip scene, another perspective. So cool the way that she was able to adjust her body to find the speed to get the proper re-entry into that landing. So you saw it wind up extending the bike a little bit away to slow it down, pulling it in to speed it up.
And it's all rewarded with the 71.33, seeing her jump up into that 3rd place position. Now we've got an interesting situation here where several Chinese riders are battling out to get those points towards the Olympics. But you want your country to do well, but you also want to do well yourself. And you could see yourself actually knocking one of your friends or fellow members of the team out from going to the Olympics. So it's a double-edged sword in a way.
Yeah, it definitely could be an interesting plane ride home, that's for sure. Big no-handed backflip for Yawen Dang. Good extension on that flip, so you can see a little bit of a different style than if you have your hands on the bars and you can play with the adjustment of how far the bike is away to speed up or slow down your rotation. But getting that nice extension, putting the back out and the arms to either side. Double bar spin, and you saw that was actually more of a bus driver. She kept the fingers on the bars and was able to just guide the bars around. That's known as the bus driver. The bar spin is when you toss the bars, and again, we had that X up when you hold on to them, you spin them halfway and bring them back like she just tried to do after that bar spin. There you go, taking off the one hand, 1 foot, also known as a special K right there. We're seeing, again, some of these classic jumping tricks. I really dig it. And we got 10 seconds to go for Yawen Dang.
Yeah, getting that air over the hip, cruising over that second jump box, coming down to the last second on the tail whip. Clean run there for Yawen. Going to be very happy with that one. And showing respect to the crowd. Big smile on her face, and rightly so. That was such a good run, Daryl.
Yeah, to be able to finish clean, but right here to start big is a huge move. Look at that. The handlebars tucked perfectly into the lap. Again, we talk about that stabilizing the front end of the bike. Here's a tail whip across that extended spine, steep on both sides, the takeoff and the landing. And there you're seeing a little bit of those hot hands on the bars. Even though she was on the deck, we just got a little preview of how she threw the bars, guiding them with her hand in that bus driver as opposed to the bar spin when you just toss them and let them go.
So 75.68 is the score for first. Yawen got a 74, jumping up to 75, seeing her finish in that second place position. 2 more riders to go from heat number 2, though. It could all change. Looking focused there. Sometimes it's worth, picturing and getting that muscle memory to remember what it is to do certain tricks. You see people spinning their bars or maybe moving their head in a way. And it's so important to keep that muscle memory nice and fresh, right?
Yeah, Mark. I mean, a big part, too, like we think about it, right? For BMX and the progression and the tricks, it's almost making what feels impossible to you possible and putting that together. And a big part for a lot of people is visualization. So if you can kind of picture your run and visualize, and maybe, again, that's a technique that Daniel Dare shared with them, because Daniel, we've seen for years before his runs, he always takes a moment, he pauses, he waits before he drops in, and he almost just goes through his entire run in his head, thinking about what he's going to do and how he's going to put it together. And right now, Jackie Soon is putting it together solid. Nice 360 over that extended spine, grabbing the toboggan. That's where you twist the bars, taking one hand off, and keeping the thing flowing right now at 10 seconds going for her second run. Maybe she could put a big exclamation at the end, getting the speed, tail whip, landing a little low, but enough to get that alley-oop, and that is going to be time for Jackie Soon.
Yeah, and a really well-timed run there, and that shows the experience. It's one thing just throwing a load of tricks around, but to be able to get them in on time as well shows exactly the training that needs to be gone through, especially on different courses all around the world.
Yeah, I do feel like the riders definitely have watched some, like I said, some tape, either some mid-school BMX or even Daniel Dare's right there on that 360 tail whip. You almost saw kind of a little bit of Daniel Dare's foot positioning on that spin.
Wow. Big score come in. Sorry to interrupt, but 87.33, and your new leader, Sun, jumps way up there and head and shoulders above second place with the 75.67. So, like what we said, holding back the bangers for the last run.
Yeah, nicely done right there. And if anything should interrupt, it should definitely be a first-place score. So Jackie Soon get into that top spot. But if one rider can shake it up, it's definitely going to be our next, because they were our number 1 qualifier. That means that they rode the course better in the judges' eyes than anyone else today. And that is going to be Humin Zhao, who is going to drop in and try to disrupt that 87.33 put on by Jackie Soon.
Yeah, the pressure's really on, but coming out at the gates, flying. 2 no-handers in there already. and cruising over on that transfer. Definite sense of urgency on run number 2, and it would be after watching what just went down.
Yeah, and you could see the focus really just hitting it home with each one of those tricks. I love that 360 double bar spin 2 times around. It's a lot harder than a single bar spin because you got to just be focused on that landing. And we're seeing Human is super focused as she transfers with the no-hander, tucking it in, getting that can step through over the top. And you see that she's also utilizing both sides of the park, zigzagging back and forth, and now coming back in with that no-hander. So these are going to be important moments, Mark. If she can kind of build back up some momentum and put together some kind of big trick right here, letting the judges know that, hey, I still got it. I'm in control. I got the speed, power, and can make it happen. Big double bar spin right there. Landed a little bit sideways, but able to get the hands back on the grip and get it done before the buzzer.
Yeah, great run there for run number 2. And that was our first place qualifier from yesterday's open qualifications. What a great competition so far. And like I said earlier, we really are seeing the progression of women's BMX right in front of us right here.
There's the 360 double bar spin. You saw that she just checked in quickly. And there we have it. Daniel Dares right there, super proud, cheering on the Chinese riders.
So that big score of 87.34 to take the lead, and a 71 coming through, seeing her finish in that 5th place position. But there can be only 3 positions on the podium. Bit of disappointment there you can see on her face, but she should be very, very happy with a high standard of riding all day today. You see that overview of this huge skate park here. We've got a street course just out of shot there, and this is where all the big stuff's happening in our big park. Cruising over and seeing our street course there. This drone pilot is definitely looking to get a bonus, I think. He's getting some great shots. So all smiles from Team China, and rightly so. Great, great riding coming out of China at the moment. And one rider who wasn't from China in the finals, Queensaray Villegas from Colombia, put on a great show as well. But we had 2 heats of 4, 2 runs for each rider, and each run was 60 seconds. And you mentioned it earlier about remembering what tricks you're doing and focusing and running that amount of tricks and what tricks you're doing, like the routine through your head. It's, you know, hard to keep up because as soon as you make a mistake, that can really upset the run, right?
Yeah, you wind up having a line, and for what that means to maybe some of our fans who are brand new to BMX, you basically have to hit one ramp in a certain direction to build up to hit your next one. So if you want to do, let's say, that tail whip transfer going from the spine to the step-up landing, you might have to set up 3 or 4 jumps before that so that you're properly lined up so you can hit the ramp and the takeoff on the right trajectory that you want. So if you wind up having a problem or something goes on, you basically then your whole run could get thrown off. And that's why we kept highlighting, hey, the ending of the run is really important. If you can have speed and momentum, it shows the judges that you're not lost, that things went according to your way, that you had a lot of control over your bike and the course, that you don't get a chance to ride anywhere else because this is built just for this competition. So the riders don't have a lot of time to practice on it. Not their local park. There's a lot of new features. As we mentioned, the heat, the weather, the travel, the potential jet lag. And if you can wind up showing your control and skill under all of those variables, I mean, that's how you wind up getting to the top of the podium.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. It looks like we've got our podium out there waiting to give our prizes to our top 3. But a big shout out to each and every one of you joining us here at Madrid Urban Sports 2023. Thank you for joining us. It's been a great way to start things.
Mark, and if somebody doesn't follow us already, please do so on Instagram. It's just at Urban World Series. You can stay up to date not only on all the best riding happening at our events, but also all the behind-the-scenes action. Because as you know, Mark, we have scooter, breaking, skate, in addition to BMX. There's over 300 athletes, 60 countries represented. So much goes on. It's just beyond the sports, too. I mean, this is such a lifestyle and energy, music performances. There's graffiti, hip-hop, art, there's self-expression. And you have the women's riders' results coming in as well. And if we take a look, China 1st through 7th right there, and Colombia in 8th.
Yeah, a lot of red flags on that one. And a great show from Team China, dominating our final there. And some great riding coming out. Paying homage to some of those old school tricks as well. And the judges rewarding them all for a great first event here at Urban World Series.
Mark, I think we might have to add another event. It might be drone flying, the way that our operator is just making it through those flags. I don't know if they're going to come down and visit you and the judges in the booth, but I'm loving the control right here. We might have to add another one for our 4th edition.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to duck. I hope there's not too much of a delay on that camera. I won't see it coming. So riders making their way over to our podium. We'll be back tomorrow with our men's final as well, which is definitely going to go off. Some heavy hitters out here in Madrid. But for now, it's our women's podium. And there's our bronze medal going to 3rd place. And it really is all smiles down there. You can see Team China are very happy with their results here in Madrid and accumulating all of those juicy points in the UCI system and taking them through towards the big show, the Olympics at Paris 2024. Silver medal being awarded there. And just gold to go. Team China definitely a force to be reckoned with at the moment, Daryl. And this is going to definitely boost up their confidence.
Gold medal. Yeah, I wonder also if this means that Daniel Dares potentially gets a nice little bonus here, because the top 7 places going to China, that is quite impressive. I can't remember a time when there has been a sweep like that from a certain country. I don't think I've ever seen that in women's BMX freestyle. But potentially back in the mid-90s, early 2000s, maybe USA. There's been some podium sweeps for some comps that took place in USA. But, you know, this is an international event. And you see right there, Jackie Soon with an 87.22 on top.
Yeah, Yao Wendeng, 3rd place, 75. And Queensaray, 75.67. And Jackie Soon getting that 87.33 and taking away the gold. Okay, thank you very much for joining us here at the Madrid Urban Sports 3rd year It's been great to have you, and it's been great to be chatting through some amazing women's BMX Park final with you, Daryl. Thank you very much for joining me.
Mark, it's an absolute pleasure. I know we're both fans of action sports, especially BMX Freestyle, and to witness the progression. Big ups to all of our riders, but also all of our fans who are there in Madrid and worldwide for joining us, cheering on our fellow riders.
Yeah, and thanks very much to each and every one of you for joining us here live at the Madrid Urban Sports. We'll be back soon with our scooter finals, and we'll be back tomorrow with our men's BMX Park finals as well, and we will see you very soon.
When the city sleeps, I'm feeling wide awake. I wasn't made for this life in the fucking cage. I was made for this life on the fucking stage, and I'ma get it either way, man, I don't play. You can't just stand there and watch it, you can get up, get out, show them what you got, man, fuck. Are you just gonna take that? Their time is up, bro, now it's payback.
This ain't luck, man. We fucking earned that shit. We earned it.
You call this shit luck,
All
bro?
that fucking hard work, the years, the grind. You don't compare to a level of energy, bro. I don't fuck with you.
Yeah, the shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low, and I'm going with the flow. Yeah, the shit's about to blow. Got my bass down low. Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
En Imagine tenemos una pregunta. ¿De qué color ves nuestro logo? ¿Verde o azul? Si lo ves verde es porque juntos ya hemos plantado más de 300.000 árboles. Si lo ves azul es porque hemos retirado más de 21 toneladas de plástico del mar. Y es que somos muy azules, y muy verdes, y muy azules, y también verdes, y azules, claro. Imagine, somos lo que hacemos.
¿Y yo qué culpa tengo si me han tirado a la piscina con el móvil en el bolsillo, papá? Buen argumento, ¿eh? Vamos con esta.
Tranquilo, que tu padre lo tiene fácil. Porque ahora, por ser de mi Movistar, puedes tener hasta 5 dispositivos. Estrenar uno está bien, estrenar más es mejor.
Ah, y carita de pena, eso no falla.
Las pequeñas alegrías no son pequeñas, son la alegría. Date una alegría. Ven, Andalucía.
Wish that you would wake up and just open up your mind, yeah. Open up your eyes, open up your life. Cause you just gotta be alive. Cause you're living in the darkness and you hate it every time. So you just gotta change, man, open up your mind to the beautiful things around. Man, it's called life, take a breath. It's fresh, it's nice and it's cold. It's so refreshing, especially cause you hate it all. But if you change your mind and you get involved in the beautiful things, then you can be all that you... Shut your mouth and just listen to me. If you follow this, then you could be, yeah, everything that you wanna be. Stop the negative things, cause you need to see what